Olivia Parker moved through the Highland Archers training facility like a shadow, unnoticed, efficient, and deliberately forgettable. At 28, she had mastered the art of becoming invisible. Her auburn hair was always tucked beneath a worn baseball cap, her clothes practical and unremarkable, and her green eyes rarely connected with anyone directly. The competitive archers called her "equipment girl" behind her back, though her role extended far beyond that simple label. She was a maintenance technician hired 8 months ago to handle the endless array of equipment issues that came with preparing elite archers for championship competition. Broken bowstrings, damaged stabilizers, loose sights, and countless other technical problems. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Olivia had seen and fixed it all, with a quiet precision that made people forget she was even there, which was exactly how she preferred it. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., Olivia arrived at the equipment station before anyone else. She'd organize the repair tools, inspect the practice bows, and prepare the training area with methodical care. The Highland Archers facility hummed with the focused energy of competitive training, coaches giving instructions, archers practicing their form, the rhythmic thud of arrows striking targets. Olivia worked through it all with systematic efficiency, a small figure in a gray technician's shirt who seemed to anticipate every equipment need before it arose. The archers who bothered to notice her at all saw exactly what they expected to see: a quiet technical assistant who fixed their equipment. Some were polite enough, nodding when they passed her in the corridors. Others treated her like just another piece of equipment, useful when needed, invisible otherwise. A few, like Marcus Webb, the facility's star archer and 3-time national champion, seemed to take pleasure in reminding her of her place in the center's hierarchy. "Equipment girl strikes again," Webb would say when Olivia appeared to fix a damaged bow, his voice carrying just enough mockery to make nearby archers snicker. That she's never even drawn a competition bow before. Olivia never responded to these comments. She'd learned long ago that some battles weren't worth fighting, especially when you had bigger secrets to protect. She'd repair the equipment, adjust the sights, file the maintenance reports, and return to her station, where she'd spend lunch breaks alone studying the latest archery technical manuals and equipment innovations. What none of them knew, what none of them could have guessed, was that Olivia Parker was the daughter of Thomas "Bullseye" Parker, one of the most legendary Olympic archers in American history. 3 gold medals over 12 years, including the famous hurricane shot that won the team competition in Madrid despite impossible wind conditions. Archery blogs still debated whether some of his competition shots were even physically possible given the conditions. Olivia wore her father's championship ring every day, a simple gold band with an arrow engraved on the inside, that had been present at countless competitions across 3 Olympic Games. She'd inherited more than just the ring when Thomas died of a stroke 2 years ago. She'd inherited 20 years of training, muscle memory that could put arrows through playing cards at 70 meters, and a precision that extended far beyond archery into every aspect of her life. But she'd also inherited his burden, the weight of what those skills meant, the responsibility that came with being extraordinary when all you wanted was to be ordinary. After Thomas's funeral, Olivia had walked away from her position as the youngest coach ever hired by the Olympic Training Center. 6 years of international competition, a silver medal at the World Championships, dozens of national records, all of it felt hollow without him there to share it with. She'd tried working at a sporting goods store for a while, but it felt too removed from the world she understood. The Highland Archers position was perfect. Archery environment, technical work, but no competition. She could serve the sport without the pressure of performance, help without facing the spotlight that had always made her uncomfortable. The irony wasn't lost on her that she'd ended up back where she started, surrounded by competitive archers who saw her as nothing more than an equipment technician. But anonymity had its advantages. Nobody asked probing questions about her background. Nobody expected her to be anything more than competent at basic bow repair. Nobody suspected that. The quiet woman adjusting stabilizers could put 3 arrows into a dime-sized group at 90 meters. Olivia's small apartment outside Phoenix reflected her carefully cultivated ordinary life. Technical manuals, a few photographs of her father at the Olympics, and locked in a case she rarely opened, his custom Olympic recurve bow. She maintained it religiously since his death, but never drew it. That part of her life was over. Or so she thought. The first sign that her carefully constructed piece was about to shatter came on a Thursday afternoon during an advanced youth training session. Mia Johnson, a promising 16-year-old archer with natural talent but inconsistent form, was struggling with her new competition bow. Her coach, Sarah Bennett, had been working with her for hours, but Mia's frustration was building with every missed shot. "I don't understand what's wrong," Mia said, her voice cracking slightly. "I was shooting fine last week with my practice bow." "Competition bows are different," Coach Bennett explained patiently. "The draw weight is higher, the balance is different. You'll adjust." Olivia watched from her workbench, noticing what neither the coach nor the archer had seen. The bow's sight had been knocked slightly out of alignment, probably during transport to the facility. It was a subtle issue, the kind that would drive a young archer to frustration without an obvious cause. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. After 20 minutes of watching Mia's growing distress, Olivia approached quietly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft but clear. "May I check something on the equipment?" Coach Bennett looked surprised but nodded. "Of course, Olivia." Olivia took the bow and examined it with practiced hands, her movements economical and purposeful. "The sight's been knocked about 2 millimeters off center," she explained, making a minute adjustment with her tuning tools. "And the brace height needs a slight adjustment for her draw length." She worked quickly, her fingers moving with the kind of precision that only came from thousands of hours of practice. The coach watched with growing interest as Olivia made several tiny adjustments to the bow's setup. "Try it now," Olivia said, handing the bow back to Mia. The young archer took her position, drew the bow with the same form she'd been using all afternoon, and released. The arrow struck dead center in the target. Mia's eyes widened in surprise. She knocked another arrow, drew, and released. Another perfect hit, touching the first arrow. "How did you do that?" Mia asked, turning to Olivia with newfound respect. "The bow wasn't set up correctly for you," Olivia explained. "A competition bow needs to be precisely tuned to your specific draw length, anchor point, and release style. Even tiny variations can throw off your accuracy at competition distances." "Where did you learn to do that?" Coach Bennett asked, her professional interest clearly piqued. Olivia felt a moment of panic, the familiar fear of being noticed, of standing out. "Just experience," she said vaguely. "I've worked with a lot of bows." She retreated to her workbench, but something had shifted in that moment. She'd revealed a crack in her carefully constructed facade, and cracks had a way of widening under pressure. The next morning, Olivia found Coach Bennett waiting for her at the equipment station. "That was impressive work yesterday," Bennett said without preamble. "Just doing my job," Olivia replied, focusing on organizing her tools rather than meeting the coach's eyes. "Most equipment technicians can't spot a 2 millimeter sight misalignment from across the room," Bennett observed, "or know exactly how to adjust a bow for a specific archer's form without seeing them shoot more than a few arrows." Olivia didn't respond, continuing her morning routine with the same methodical precision she applied to everything. "You know," Bennett continued, "we have the regional championships coming up in 3 weeks. We could use someone with your eye for detail to help make sure all our archers' equipment is perfectly tuned. That's already part of my job, Olivia pointed out. I meant someone to travel with the team, Bennett clarified, to handle equipment issues during the competition itself. The suggestion sent a cold wave of anxiety through Olivia's chest. Competitions meant crowds, attention, and worst of all, people who might recognize her. The archery world wasn't enormous, and though she'd been out of competition for years, there were still plenty of coaches and officials who would know the name Parker. I don't think that's a good idea, she said quietly. I'm more useful here at the facility. Bennett looked disappointed but didn't push. Well, the offer stands if you change your mind. Someone with your level of expertise would be invaluable to our team. After Bennett left, Olivia tried to settle back into her routine, but her hands weren't quite steady. The conversation had triggered memories she'd been trying to suppress. The tension of competition preparation, the weight of expectations, her father's voice walking her through each adjustment before a major event. She could almost hear him. Precision before the shot guarantees precision during the shot. Live. The rest of the week passed with Olivia working even harder to maintain her invisibility. She arrived earlier, left later, and spent lunch breaks in the storage room rather than the common area. But she could feel the subtle shift in how people looked at her. Coach Bennett had obviously mentioned the incident to other staff members, and now several coaches were bringing their struggling archers directly to her for equipment checks. "Equipment girl has magic hands," she overheard one young archer tell another. "She fixed Jordan's bow, and now he can't miss." The comment should have pleased her. She was helping young archers improve, after all, but instead, it sent another spike of anxiety through her chest. Standing out meant questions. Questions led to discoveries. Discoveries met expectations she wasn't prepared to face again. The situation came to a head 2 weeks later. The Highland Archers was hosting a pre-championship clinic with coaches and archers from across the Southwest gathering to prepare for the regional championships. Olivia had planned to take the day off to avoid the crowded facility filled with people who might recognize her. But a text from the facility director the night before had made that impossible. "Need you tomorrow," Frank Nelson had written. "Equipment emergency. Several bows damaged in transit. High priority." So Olivia found herself in the busiest area of the facility, surrounded by competitive archers from across the region, working on a collection of compound bows that had indeed been badly mishandled during shipping. She kept her head down, her cap pulled low, and focused entirely on the intricate work of repairing carbon fiber risers and realigning precision sights. "Well, I'll be damned," a voice said from directly behind her. Olivia Parker. Olivia's hands froze on the bow she was repairing. She recognized the voice immediately, Richard Donovan, her father's former Olympic coach and the last person she wanted to see. Slowly she turned, knowing there was no escape. "Coach Donovan," she acknowledged quietly. The older man was staring at her with undisguised shock. 3 years without a word, and I find you working as an equipment tech. What the hell, Parker?" Several nearby archers turned to look, curious about the commotion. Olivia felt her carefully constructed anonymity crumbling around her. "I needed a change," she said simply. "A change?" Donovan repeated incredulously. "You were on track to surpass your father's record. The youngest Parker to make the Olympic team, and you just disappeared after Thomas died." More heads were turning now. Olivia could see the confusion on their faces, the dawning recognition as they connected the dots. Parker, Thomas Parker, bullseye. "This isn't the place," Olivia said, her voice tight. "I have work to do." "Work?" Donovan gestured at the bows spread across her workbench. "This is what you're doing instead of competing. Instead of coaching? Do you have any idea how many young archers could benefit from what you know?" "I'm helping plenty of archers right here," Olivia countered. feeling a flicker of the old fire that had made her a fierce competitor once. As an equipment girl? Donovan's voice carried across the now silent training area. That's like hiring Yo-Yo Ma to tune pianos. A small crowd had gathered, watching the exchange with undisguised interest. Among them, Olivia spotted Marcus Webb, his expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "You're Thomas Parker's daughter?" Webb asked, stepping forward. "The Thomas Parker, Olympic gold medalist?" Olivia felt trapped, cornered by the very past she'd been running from. "Yes," she admitted finally. "But that has nothing to do with my job here." "It has everything to do with it," Donovan insisted. "You're wasting your talent, your father's legacy." "Don't talk to me about my father's legacy," Olivia interrupted, a rare edge entering her voice. "I lived it, I carried it. And after he died, I decided I needed something different." The facility director, Frank Nelson, pushed through the crowd, clearly concerned about the disruption. "What's going on here?" Donovan turned to him. You know who you hired? This is Olivia Parker, Thomas Parker's daughter. Olympic hopeful, World Championship silver medalist, youngest coach ever hired by the Olympic Training Center." Nelson looked from Donovan to Olivia, his expression stunned. "Is this true?" Olivia nodded once, resignation replacing her initial panic. The secret was out. 3 years of careful anonymity, gone in an instant. "Why didn't you say anything?" Nelson asked. "We would have offered you a coaching position, not this." He gestured at her workbench. "I didn't want a coaching position," Olivia explained, suddenly tired of hiding. "I wanted to be around archery without being the center of attention, without expectations, without everyone looking at me and seeing only my father." A hush fell over the gathered crowd. Even Donovan seemed momentarily at a loss for words. "Well," Nelson said finally, "this changes things." "It doesn't have to," Olivia countered quickly. "I'm good at my job. I help the archers here." "Isn't that enough?" Before Nelson could answer, a voice spoke from the back of the crowd. "No, it's not enough." The crowd parted to reveal Coach Bennett, her expression determined. "Not when we have archers who could benefit from your knowledge, your experience. Not when you're hiding your light under a bushel while our team struggles to reach the next level." Olivia looked around at the faces staring back at her, curious, surprised, some even seeming betrayed. Among them was Mia Johnson, the young archer whose bow Olivia had fixed, her expression a mixture of awe and confusion. "You could have been helping us all this time?" Mia asked. "Really helping us, not just fixing our equipment?" The question hit Olivia like a physical blow. Had her desire for anonymity, for escape from her father's legacy, actually been selfish? Had she been denying these young archers something valuable simply to protect herself from painful memories? "I think," Frank Nelson said carefully, "we should continue this conversation in my office." Olivia nodded, grateful for the reprieve, however temporary. As she followed Nelson through the parting crowd, she caught a final glimpse of Marcus Webb's face. The mockery was gone, replaced by something that looked uncomfortably like respect. In Nelson's office, the facility director closed the door and turned to face her. "So," he said, "Olivia Parker." "Just Olivia is fine," she replied automatically. "You know, when you applied for the equipment technician position, I thought your name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it." Nelson shook his head. "I should have made the connection." "I wasn't trying to deceive anyone," Olivia said. "My credentials for the position were honest. I just didn't elaborate on my background. 3 World Cup gold medals, a World Championship silver, 6 national records, and Olympic Training Center coach isn't background, Olivia. It's a resume that should have put you in a completely different position here." Olivia sighed, the weight of her past settling back onto her shoulders like a familiar but unwelcome burden. "After my father died, I just couldn't be that person anymore." The competitions, the pressure, the constant comparisons to him. It was too much. Nelson studied her for a long moment. "I can understand that," he said finally. "Grief changes people. And I won't pretend to know what it's like to be the child of someone that accomplished." Relief washed through her. He understood, or at least was trying to. "But," Nelson continued, "now that everyone knows who you are, we have a situation. The archers, especially the younger ones, are going to have questions. The coaches too. And we have the regional championships in just over a week. What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to figure out what this means for your role here going forward. Coach Bennett wasn't wrong. We have archers who could benefit enormously from your expertise." Olivia felt the walls closing in, the carefully constructed boundaries of her new life crumbling. "I don't want to coach," she said firmly. "I'm not ready for that. What about a compromise?" Nelson suggested. "You continue as our equipment specialist, but you also provide some technical guidance to our competition. Team for the championships. Help them optimize their equipment. Maybe offer some insights on competition preparation. No coaching, just technical consultation." It was a reasonable suggestion, a middle path that wouldn't require her to fully step back into her old role. But even this felt like too much too soon. "I need to think about it," Olivia said finally. Nelson nodded. "Take the rest of the day." "But Olivia, for what it's worth, I think hiding your abilities hasn't brought you the peace you were looking for. Maybe it's time to try a different approach." Olivia left the facility feeling exposed in a way she hadn't in years. The secret that had defined her new life was out, and with it, the protective barrier she'd built between her past and present. As she drove home, her father's voice seemed to fill the car, a memory so vivid it might have been real. "Running from who you are never works, Liv," Thomas had told her once after a particularly difficult competition. "You can only run towards something better." At the time, she'd thought he was talking about archery technique, about not dwelling on bad shots, but focusing on the next opportunity. Now she wondered if he'd been trying to tell her something more fundamental about life itself. In her apartment, Olivia opened the case containing her father's Olympic bow for the first time in months. The custom recurve was exactly as she'd left it, perfectly maintained. The limbs still showing the distinctive blue and gold Team USA colors, the grip worn in exactly the spots where Thomas's hand had held it through thousands of shots. She ran her fingers along the smooth limbs, feeling the potential energy stored in the design. This bow had made Olympic history in her father's hands. It represented everything she'd been running from: expectations, pressure, the shadow of greatness that had always loomed over her own accomplishments. But it also represented something else: precision, excellence, the pure joy of perfect execution that she'd first fallen in love with as a child. Before the competitions, before the medals, before the weight of legacy, there had been the simple satisfaction of an arrow flying true to its mark. Olivia's phone rang, breaking her reverie. The display showed Richard Donovan's name. He must have gotten her number from someone at the facility. She hesitated, then answered. "I owe you an apology," Donovan said without preamble. "I shouldn't have outed you like that in front of everyone. It wasn't my place." The unexpected apology caught Olivia off guard. "Thank you," she said cautiously. "Your father was my friend," Donovan continued, his voice softening. "One of the best I ever had. When you disappeared after his funeral, I was worried, then angry, then just sad. Finding you today was shocking. I needed to find my own way," Olivia explained, "away from all the expectations." "I understand that better than you might think," Donovan replied. "But Olivia, hiding your gifts isn't the answer. Thomas never wanted you to live in his shadow. He wanted you to stand in your own light." The words struck a chord deep within her. Wasn't that what she truly wanted too? Not to escape archery, but to find her own relationship with it, separate. From her father's legacy? The regional championships are next week, Donovan said. Highland has some promising archers, but they need guidance. Real guidance from someone who knows what it takes to compete at the highest level. You don't have to coach if you're not ready, but don't deny them or yourself what you have to offer. After hanging up, Olivia sat with her father's bow across her lap, turning Donovan's words over in her mind. For 3 years, she'd been defining herself by what she was running from, not what she was running toward. The equipment technician job had been a compromise, a way to stay connected to archery without facing the pressure of competition or the pain of her father's absence. But had it brought her peace, or just a different kind of prison? Olivia stood up, feeling the weight of decision. She took the bow in her hands, feeling its familiar balance. Before she could overthink it, she strung the bow with practiced movements that her muscles remembered even after years of disuse. She took an arrow from the case, nocked it, and drew the string back to her anchor point. The draw weight was exactly as she remembered, the sight picture perfectly clear. She held at full draw, feeling the steadiness that had once made her a champion, the absolute focus that Thomas had cultivated in her since childhood. In this moment, alone in her apartment, there were no expectations, no comparisons, no legacy to uphold. There was only Olivia and the bow, the string and the arrow, the perfect harmony of technique and intention that had first made her fall in love with archery. She released the string, the arrow flying across her living room to strike the small foam target she kept mounted on her wall, dead center. Thomas Parker's daughter was drawing a bow again for the first time in 3 years. But more importantly, Olivia Parker was remembering who she was beyond her father's shadow. The next morning, Olivia arrived at Highland Archers earlier than usual, her decision made. She found Frank Nelson already in his office, reviewing competition preparation documents. "I'll help with the technical consultation for the championships," she said without preamble. "But I have conditions." Nelson looked up, surprised but clearly pleased. "Name them." "I work with the equipment, not as a training coach. I provide technical advice only. Bow setup, tuning, competition preparation. No form instruction, no mental game, no strategy. That's for the coaches." Nelson nodded. "Agreed. And no publicity," Olivia continued firmly. "Don't advertise that Thomas Parker's daughter is working with the team. Don't use my name to promote the center. I'll help the archers, but I'm not a marketing tool." "That's fair," Nelson agreed. "Anything else?" Olivia hesitated, then committed to the final piece. "I want to redesign the equipment station. Upgrade the tools, implement better maintenance protocols, create a proper bow tuning setup. If I'm going to do this, I want to do it right." Nelson smiled. "I think we can manage that. Welcome to the real Highland Archers team, Olivia Parker." The news spread quickly through the facility. By mid-morning, Olivia found herself surrounded by curious archers and coaches, some apologetic for their past dismissiveness, others eager to pepper her with technical questions. She handled it all with the same quiet competence she'd always shown, but without the deliberate invisibility she'd hidden behind for so long. Even Marcus Webb approached, his usual arrogance tempered with something approaching respect. "So," he said awkwardly, "I guess I owe you an apology." "For calling me equipment girl?" Olivia asked, allowing herself a small smile. "No apology needed. It's what I am." "But not all you are," Webb pointed out. "Not even close." "We're all more than our labels," Olivia replied, thinking of how she'd both embraced and rejected the label of Thomas Parker's daughter throughout her life. "Even you, national champion," Webb laughed, surprised. "Touché. So are you going to help us get ready for regionals?" "That's the plan. Let's start by looking at your competition bow. I noticed your group patterns have been shifting at the longer distances." As she began examining Webb's equipment with a professional eye, Olivia felt something shift within her, Not a return to her old self, but the emergence of something new. A version of Olivia Parker who could honor her father's legacy while creating her own path. Someone who could share her knowledge without being defined by it. Someone who could help others find their perfect shot without losing herself in the process. The Highland Archers facility buzzed with renewed energy as the regional championships approached. Word had spread among the competitive archery community that Thomas Parker's daughter was working with the team, despite Olivia's request for no publicity. She couldn't really blame Nelson, he hadn't announced it officially, but in the close-knit archery world, news traveled fast through informal channels. Olivia found herself working longer hours, her workbench constantly surrounded by archers seeking her advice on equipment adjustments. She established a systematic approach, creating detailed equipment profiles for each competition archer, documenting their optimal setups, and training them to recognize when something was even slightly off. The difference between good and great isn't just in the shooting, she explained to a group of junior archers hanging on her every word. It's in knowing your equipment so well that you can detect a problem before it affects your performance. The transformation in the team was remarkable. Archers who had been struggling with consistency suddenly found their groups tightening. Those who had plateaued began breaking through to new personal bests. Even Marcus Webb, already an accomplished archer, found his scores improving under Olivia's technical guidance. It's like she has X-ray vision for bows, one coach commented to another as they watched Olivia make a microscopic adjustment to a compound bow's can timing. She sees problems none of us even knew existed. For Olivia, the work was challenging, but rewarding in ways her equipment technician role had never been. She was still avoiding the spotlight, still working behind the scenes, but no longer hiding her knowledge or expertise. It felt like finding a middle path between the competitive pressure of her past and the anonymity of recent years. One afternoon, a week before the championships, Olivia was working with Mia Johnson on fine-tuning her new competition bow when Coach Bennett approached with a concerned expression. "We have a situation," Bennett said quietly. "The championship committee just announced a last-minute venue change due to maintenance issues at the convention center. The new location is the outdoor field at Saguaro National Park." Olivia immediately understood the implications: wind conditions. Bennett nodded grimly. Unpredictable desert wind patterns, changing light conditions, potential heat issues. "Our team has been training indoors for weeks. This changes everything." Olivia felt a familiar surge of strategic thinking, the kind that had once made her not just a great archer, but a great competitor. "We need to adapt the equipment setups for outdoor conditions. Different stabilizer configurations, possibly different arrow selections for some archers. Can you handle that?" Bennett asked. "We only have a week." Olivia glanced at Mia, seeing the concern on the young archer's face. The girl had been making tremendous progress, but an unexpected venue change could easily derail her confidence. "We can handle it," Olivia said firmly, including Mia in her statement. "We'll need to organize some outdoor practice sessions immediately, test equipment under variable conditions, and create contingency setups for different wind scenarios." Bennett looked relieved. "I'll arrange for transportation to the desert practice field tomorrow. Can you prepare the equipment modifications by then?" "I'll work through the night if necessary," Olivia promised. As Bennett left to notify the other coaches, Mia turned to Olivia with worried eyes. "I've never competed outdoors in serious competition before. The wind, the sun. I don't know if I'm ready." Olivia recognized the fear in Mia's voice, not just of the unknown conditions, but of failure, of disappointing others, of not living up to potential. It was a fear she knew intimately. "My father used to say that unexpected challenges separate the champions from the contenders," Olivia told her. "Anyone can perform well under ideal conditions. It's adapting to difficulty that reveals true skill. What if I can't adapt? Mia asked quietly. Olivia placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. Then you learn from it and become stronger for the next competition, but I believe you can. We just need to prepare properly. That night, Olivia stayed at the facility long after everyone else had left, modifying equipment setups and planning outdoor training strategies. As she worked, she found herself drawing on years of competition experience, on lessons learned from her father, on techniques developed through countless hours of practice under varying conditions. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't running from her past, she was using it, and it felt right. The next morning, the Highland Archers competition team assembled at a desert practice field 30 miles outside Phoenix. The conditions were challenging, gusting winds, bright sunlight, and temperatures already climbing into the 90s despite the early hour. "Welcome to adversity training," Coach Bennett announced to the gathered archers. "The regional championships have thrown us a curveball, but thanks to Olivia, we're going to turn it into an advantage." All eyes turned to Olivia, who stood beside a table laden with modified equipment. The attention made her uncomfortable, but she pushed past it, focusing on the task at hand. "I've adjusted your equipment for outdoor conditions," she explained, her voice gaining confidence as she spoke about the technical aspects she knew so well. Different stabilizer weights to handle crosswinds, adjusted sight marks for varying light conditions, and modified arrow selections for some of you. Today is about learning how your equipment behaves outdoors and how to adapt to changing conditions. The practice session was grueling but productive. Olivia moved from archer to archer, making real-time adjustments based on performance and conditions. By midday, most of the team was showing remarkable adaptation to the challenging environment. All except Marcus Webb. The national champion was growing increasingly frustrated as his usually perfect shots scattered in the gusty wind. His form was deteriorating with each end, his frustration building visibly. "This is impossible," Webb finally snapped, lowering his bow after another disappointing group. "No one can shoot consistently in this wind." Olivia approached him carefully, aware of his pride. "May I make a suggestion?" Webb gestured impatiently for her to continue. "You're fighting the wind instead of working with it," Olivia observed. "You're trying to power through it, which works for small adjustments, but not for gusting conditions like these. So what's your solution, equipment girl?" Webb asked, the old mockery creeping back into his voice under the strain of frustration. Olivia ignored the jab. "A different approach. Timing your shots with the wind cycles, adjusting your aim point rather than trying to hold against the gust, and a modified stabilizer setup to provide more forgiveness." Webb looked skeptical but handed over his bow. "Show me." Olivia made several quick adjustments to his equipment, then demonstrated the timing approach she was suggesting. "Watch the grass, the flags, the heat waves. There's a pattern to even chaotic wind. Find the rhythm and shoot within it." To illustrate her point, Olivia knocked an arrow, studied the conditions for a moment, then executed a perfect shot that struck the center of the target despite a significant crosswind. She followed with 2 more arrows, grouping them tightly in the center. Webb stared at the target, then at Olivia. "How did you do that?" "Practice," Olivia said simply. "My father made me train in every possible condition: rain, wind, heat, cold." He believed that mastering adverse conditions was what separated great archers from the merely good. She handed the bow back to Webb. "Try it. Don't fight the conditions. Read them, understand them, use them." Webb took the bow, his expression thoughtful. He spent several minutes just observing the wind indicators around the field before knocking an arrow. His first shot was better, his second better still, and by the third, he was grouping arrows in the center again. "That's incredible," he admitted. "I've never approached it that way before." Different challenges require different solutions. Olivia said, "The archers who can adapt are the ones who excel when conditions aren't perfect." As the day progressed, Olivia found herself sharing more and more of her competitive knowledge, not just equipment, adjustments, but the mental approaches and strategic thinking that had once made her a world-class archer. She wasn't coaching technique, as she'd specified in her agreement with Nelson, but she was teaching something perhaps more valuable: how to think like a champion. By the end of the practice session, the team's confidence had transformed. What had begun as anxiety about the venue change had evolved into a determined readiness to face the challenge. Even Mia Johnson was shooting with newfound assurance, her arrows finding the center despite the difficult conditions. As they packed up the equipment, Coach Bennett approached Olivia with an appreciative smile. "That was more than technical consultation," she observed. "That was championship-level mentoring." Olivia shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just shared what I know about equipment adaptation." "You shared wisdom," Bennett corrected her. "The kind that only comes from experience at the highest level. The team isn't just better equipped now, they're better prepared mentally. That's a gift, Olivia." On the drive back to the facility, Olivia found herself reflecting on the day's events. She had stepped further out of her self-imposed shadows than she'd intended, sharing not just technical knowledge but the competitive insights that had shaped her career. And surprisingly, it hadn't been painful. Instead, it had felt right, like finding a piece of herself that had been missing. As she helped unload the equipment at the facility, Olivia noticed Frank Nelson watching her from his office doorway. He gestured for her to join him once she was finished. "I heard about today's practice," Nelson said when she entered his office. "Impressive work." "The team adapted well," Olivia acknowledged. "Because of your guidance," Nelson finished. "Bennett tells me you did more than fix equipment today. You taught our team how to think like champions." Olivia shifted uncomfortably. "I just shared some experience about shooting in difficult conditions." "Experience that very few people in the country possess," Nelson pointed out. "Which brings me to something I wanted to discuss with you." He gestured for her to sit down, his expression turning serious. "The regional championships will have media coverage. Sports networks, archery publications, local news. Once you're seen with the team, people will recognize you. The story of Thomas Parker's daughter working as an equipment girl will be irresistible to reporters." Olivia felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. She hadn't considered this angle. "I made it clear I didn't want publicity." "And we've respected that internally," Nelson assured her. "But we can't control the media at a major competition. They'll figure it out, especially if our team performs well using your techniques." "So what are you suggesting?" Olivia asked, though she already suspected the answer. "That we get ahead of the story," Nelson said gently. "A simple press release acknowledging that former World Championship medalist Olivia Parker has joined Highland Archers as a technical consultant. Low-key, professional, on our terms rather than letting journalists create their own narrative." Everything in Olivia wanted to refuse, to retreat back to anonymity, to protect the fragile new equilibrium she'd been establishing. But Nelson was right. Once she appeared at the championships with the team, her cover would be blown regardless. "I'll think about it," she said finally, rising to leave. "One more thing," Nelson added as she reached the door. "Whatever you decide about the media, the team needs you there at the championships. Not just your equipment adjustments, you, Olivia. Your presence, your knowledge, your ability to read conditions and make real-time decisions. They're responding to you in a way I've never seen before." The responsibility felt heavy, yet somehow different from the pressure she'd carried during her competitive career. This wasn't about living up to expectations or maintaining a legacy. It was about sharing knowledge that could help others achieve their potential. "I'll be there," she promised. "Whatever happens with the publicity." The days leading up to the regional championships passed in a blur of preparation. Olivia worked tirelessly, fine-tuning equipment, conducting additional outdoor practice. sessions, and creating detailed condition assessment guides for each archer. She found herself fully engaged in a way she hadn't been since before her father's death, her mind constantly working on strategies and solutions. The night before the team was scheduled to depart for the championships, Olivia sat alone in her apartment, her father's Olympic ring turning between her fingers as she contemplated the crossroads she faced. Going to the championships meant stepping back into the archery spotlight, being recognized, having to answer questions about her father and her disappearance from competition. But staying behind meant abandoning the team that had come to rely on her, especially Mia Johnson, who had blossomed under Olivia's guidance into a genuine medal contender. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Surprised at the late visitor, Olivia opened the door to find Coach Bennett standing there with an unexpected guest, Richard Donovan. "May we come in?" Bennett asked. Olivia hesitated, then nodded, stepping back to allow them entry. Her apartment was sparse but tidy, with her father's bouquets now displayed openly on a shelf rather than hidden away. "I hope you don't mind the intrusion," Donovan said, his eyes immediately finding Thomas's bow. "Sarah told me you've been doing remarkable work with the team." "I've been helping with equipment," Olivia clarified, automatically downplaying her contribution. Bennett shook her head. "You've been doing far more than that, Olivia. You've transformed our team's approach to competition. Marcus Webb is shooting better than ever, and Mia Johnson has improved more in a week than in the previous 6 months." "That's their hard work, not mine," Olivia insisted. "Hard work guided by expertise," Donovan countered. "The kind of expertise that only comes from competing at the highest level." Olivia gestured for them to sit down, sensing this wasn't a casual visit. "Why are you both here?" Bennett and Donovan exchanged glances before Bennett spoke. "We know you're concerned about the media attention at the championships. Frank told us you're hesitant about the press release." "I didn't disappear from competition to become a headline 3 years later," Olivia confirmed. "What if there was another way?" Donovan asked. "A way for you to help the team without being in the spotlight?" Olivia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Despite her skepticism, "I'm listening." "I still have connections with the championship organizing committee," Donovan explained. "I can arrange for you to have all access credentials as a technical consultant, but listed under a different name. You'd be able to be with the team, make equipment adjustments, provide guidance, but stay largely under the radar." "And when someone recognizes me anyway?" Olivia asked. "The archery world has changed in 3 years," Bennett pointed out. "Many of the officials and coaches who would know you have moved on. With your hair different, maybe some glasses as a minor disguise, you might be surprised how few people would make the connection if they're not looking for Olivia Parker specifically." The proposal was tempting, a compromise that would allow her to fulfill her commitment to the team while maintaining some separation from her past identity. "Why go to all this trouble?" Olivia asked, looking between them. "Why not just find another technical consultant?" "Because there isn't another Olivia Parker," Bennett said simply. "What you bring to this team isn't just technical knowledge. It's an understanding of championship-level competition that can't be taught, only experienced. And Donovan added more gently, "because I made a promise to your father before he died. He was worried about you, about how you were handling the pressure of being Thomas Parker's daughter. He asked me to look out for you, to help you find your own path in archery. I failed at that for 3 years. I'm trying to make up for it now." The mention of her father's concern caught Olivia off guard. Thomas had always seemed so confident in her abilities, so certain of her path. The idea that he had worried about the burden of his legacy on her shoulders was both painful and strangely comforting. "Let me think about it," she said finally. After Bennett and Donovan left, Olivia stood before the case containing her father's Olympic bow. She opened it, running her fingers along the smooth limbs that had carried Thomas to gold medal after gold medal. For the first time in years, She didn't feel weighed down by the bow's history, but connected to it, to her father, to the sport they both loved, to the legacy that was as much about knowledge and precision as it was about medals and records. The next morning, Olivia arrived at the Highland Archers facility before dawn, her decision made. She found Frank Nelson already in his office, preparing for the team's departure. "I'll go to the championships," she announced without preamble. Donovan explained the credential arrangement. "I think it's a good compromise." Nelson looked relieved. "The team will be thrilled, especially Mia. She's been worried you might not come." "There's one more thing," Olivia added. "I want to bring my own bow." Nelson's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You're going to shoot?" "No," Olivia clarified. "But sometimes the best way to demonstrate a technique is to show rather than tell. If conditions get really challenging, I might need to show the team how to approach it." "Your father's Olympic bow?" Nelson guessed. Olivia nodded. "It's time." It came out of retirement, even if just for demonstrations. 4 hours later, Olivia found herself on a bus headed for Saguaro National Park with the Highland Archers competition team. She sat near the front, next to Coach Bennett, reviewing weather forecasts and predicted wind conditions for the weekend. The anticipation among the team was palpable, a mixture of nervousness and excitement that Olivia remembered well from her own competition days. Mia Johnson slid into the seat across the aisle, her competition bow case clutched tightly on her lap. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly to Olivia. "Of course. How did you handle the pressure when you were competing internationally? I mean, how did you stay calm when everything was on the line?" It was exactly the kind of question Olivia had been avoiding for years, the kind that forced her to revisit her competitive mindset, to remember what it felt like to stand on the shooting line with the world watching. "My father taught me something important," she said after a moment's reflection. "He said that pressure is just potential energy, like a drawn bow. You can let it control you, or you can direct it toward your target." Mia considered this, her young face serious. "But what if I mess up? What if I let everyone down?" "You can only let yourself down," Olivia told her. "And even then, only if you don't give your absolute best effort. Results aren't entirely in your control. Wind changes, equipment can fail, other competitors might have the day of their lives. The only thing you can control is your approach, your focus, and your response to challenges." "Is that how you won your world championship medal?" Olivia smiled, the memory no longer painful but instructive. "Actually, it's how I lost the gold. I shot perfectly through the entire competition, but in the final, my opponent simply shot better. I gave everything I had, and silver was the result. I was disappointed for about an hour, then realized I just had one of the best performances of my career. The color of the medal didn't change that." Mia seemed to absorb this, nodding slowly. "So it's about the performance, not just the outcome." "Exactly. Excellence is the goal. Medals are just recognition of excellence, not the excellence itself." As the bus continued its journey, more archers made their way to Olivia, asking questions, seeking advice, drawing on her experience in a way she'd never allowed since her father's death. And for the first time, sharing that knowledge felt like honoring his legacy rather than being burdened by it. The competition venue was exactly as challenging as Bennett had predicted. Set in a natural desert amphitheater, the field was surrounded by rock formations that created swirling, unpredictable wind patterns. The morning sun cast long shadows across the targets, with light conditions that would change dramatically throughout the day as the sun moved overhead. As the team unloaded their equipment, Olivia conducted a thorough assessment of the conditions, making notes and sketching wind patterns in a small notebook, a habit she'd developed during her competitive years. She moved methodically around the field, reading the environment like a text, deciphering its challenges. Marcus Webb approached as she completed her circuit of the venue. "So, what's the verdict, equipment girl?" he asked, the old nickname now carrying a tone of respect, rather than mockery. Challenging but consistent, Olivia replied, showing him her notes. The wind follows patterns based on the surrounding landscape. If you time your shots to these cycles, you'll have an advantage. Webb studied her diagrams with interest. You can really read conditions this precisely. My father could read a breeze before it even happened, Olivia said with a small smile. I'm not quite that good, but I've learned to see the patterns most people miss. Will you share this with the whole team? Webb asked. The question surprised her. The Marcus Webb she'd first met would have wanted to keep such an advantage for himself. Of course, she assured him. We rise together. The qualification rounds began an hour later. Olivia stayed behind the shooting line, moving between the Highland archers, making the equipment adjustments and quietly coaching them on reading the changing conditions. Under her guidance, the team performed remarkably well, with several archers setting personal bests despite the difficult environment. Mia Johnson, in particular, was shooting with newfound confidence, her arrows grouping tightly in the center, even when the wind picked up. By the lunch break, she had established herself as a serious contender in the junior women's division, sitting in third place overall. It's working, she told Olivia excitedly as they reviewed her scores. Everything you taught me about reading the wind, about timing my shots, it's actually working. Of course it's working, Olivia replied with a smile. It's based on principles, not luck. Physics doesn't change, even when conditions do. As the afternoon session began, Olivia noticed a commotion near the officials' tent. Richard Donovan was there, engaged in an animated conversation with several tournament officials. A moment later, he approached Olivia and Coach Bennett with a concerned expression. We have a problem, he said quietly. The wind conditions are expected to worsen significantly for the finals tomorrow. The organizing committee is considering a format change, longer distances for the medal rounds to really test the archers' abilities under pressure. Bennett frowned. That's unusual mid-competition. How much longer? 90 meters for the senior divisions, 70 for juniors, Donovan replied. And they're talking about a single elimination format rather than the round robin we expected. Olivia felt a surge of concern. The increased distance combined with stronger winds would create extremely challenging conditions, especially for younger archers like Mia, who had less experience with long-distance shooting under pressure. Can we protest? Bennett asked. Donovan shook his head. It's within their authority to make format changes for safety or competitive reasons. The wind forecast qualifies. Olivia considered the implications. We need to adjust our strategy and equipment immediately. The longer distance changes everything. Sight marks, arrow selection, stabilizer configuration. Can you handle it? Bennett asked. I'll need to work with each archer individually, Olivia replied, already calculating the necessary modifications, starting with those most likely to make the finals. Throughout the remainder of the qualification rounds, Olivia worked frantically to prepare the team for the changed format. She adjusted equipment, created new sight marks for the longer distances, and coached the archers on long-distance shooting techniques in windy conditions. By the end of the day, 6 Highland archers had qualified for the finals, a remarkable achievement given the challenging conditions. Among them were Marcus Webb in the senior men's division and Mia Johnson in junior women's. Both would be competing the next day for medals under the new, more difficult format. That evening, in the hotel conference room, the team had commandeered for equipment work. Olivia found herself surrounded by nervous archers preparing for the biggest competition of their season under unexpectedly difficult circumstances. 90 meters and gusting wind, Webb muttered as Olivia made final adjustments to his stabilizer setup. That's Olympic-level challenge. You're an Olympic-level archer, Olivia reminded him. You just haven't had the opportunity to prove it yet, Webb looked at her with surprising vulnerability. "Do you really believe that?" "I wouldn't say it if I didn't," Olivia replied honestly. "I've seen enough championship-level archery to recognize the potential. Tomorrow is your chance to show everyone else what I already see." Across the room, Mia sat alone, staring at her bow with an expression of barely contained panic. Olivia finished with Webb and made her way over to the young archer. 70 meters, Mia said without looking up. "I've never competed at that distance before." "You've practiced at 80, Olivia pointed out. "In controlled conditions, the principles are the same. But with this wind and the pressure of finals?" Mia shook her head. "I don't think I can do it." Olivia sat down beside her. "When I was 16, I competed in my first international event. The conditions were terrible: rain, wind, cold. I told my father I wanted to withdraw because I wasn't ready for that level of challenge." "What did he say?" Mia asked. "He said, 'Readiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you claim.' Then he handed me his Olympic ring and told me to compete as if I belonged there, as if challenging conditions were exactly what I'd prepared for all along." "Did it work?" Olivia smiled at the memory. "I finished fourth. Missed the bronze by a single point. But more importantly, I discovered that I was capable of far more than I believed. The limits I'd placed on myself were imaginary." She took Mia's bow, making a small adjustment to the stabilizer. "Tomorrow will be challenging. Embrace that fact. The archers who rise to the occasion instead of wishing for easier conditions are the ones who make history." The finals day dawned clear but windy, with gusts up to 30 miles per hour sweeping across the desert venue. As predicted, the tournament committee had set the targets at 90 meters for seniors and 70 for juniors, distances that would challenge even the most experienced archers under such windy conditions. Olivia arrived early with Coach Bennett to assess the situation. The wind was following different patterns than the previous day, swirling more unpredictably around the rock formations. She spent an hour mapping the new patterns, creating a wind strategy guide for each Highland archer. As the team arrived and began warming up, Olivia moved between them, providing last-minute equipment checks and quietly reinforcing the wind-reading techniques they'd practiced. Despite her attempts to maintain a low profile, she noticed several officials and coaches from other teams watching her with curious expressions. Her disguise, hair pulled back, glasses, generic staff clothing, was working to some degree, but she could tell that questions were beginning to circulate about the mysterious technical consultant, who seemed to know so much about championship-level competition. The junior women's division was scheduled first. Mia Johnson, still in third place after qualifications, would be competing in the quarterfinals against a more experienced archer from a Colorado training center. As Mia prepared to take the shooting line, Olivia gave her final advice. "Remember, read the wind before each shot. Don't rush. Trust your training and your equipment. We've prepared for exactly these conditions." Mia nodded, her face set with determination despite the nervousness in her eyes. "I'll make you proud." "Make yourself proud," Olivia corrected gently. "That's all that matters." The quarterfinal match was intense, with both archers struggling against the gusting wind. Mia applied Olivia's techniques beautifully, timing her shots to coincide with the brief lulls between gusts, adjusting her aim to account for drift. When the final arrow had been shot, Mia had won by 3 points, advancing to the semifinals. As the competition progressed, Highland archers continued to perform above expectations. By early afternoon, Marcus Webb had secured a place in the senior men's final, and Mia Johnson had defied all predictions by reaching the junior women's final as well. The atmosphere among the Highland team was electric. They were on the verge of achieving results that would have seemed impossible just weeks before. Frank Nelson approached Olivia as she made final equipment checks for Webb's gold medal match. "Whatever happens in these finals," he said quietly. "You've already transformed." "This team, thank you for coming out of the shadows." Olivia felt a surge of emotion she hadn't expected. Pride not in her own accomplishments, but in what she'd been able to share with others. This, she realized, was what her father had tried to tell her about legacy, that it wasn't just about what you achieved yourself, but what you enabled others to achieve through your knowledge and example. The senior men's final was scheduled before the junior women's, so Olivia focused her attention on preparing Marcus Webb for his gold medal match. His opponent was Daniel Foster, the current national champion and a favorite for the upcoming Olympic trials. "Foster is technically perfect," Webb said as he warmed up. "His form doesn't break down even in these conditions." "But he's predictable," Olivia observed, having watched Foster's semifinal performance. "He shoots on a rhythm regardless of wind conditions. You can use that against him by being more adaptive." Webb nodded, absorbing the strategy. "Read and respond rather than forcing a rhythm, just like you taught us." The final was even more challenging than anticipated. As the archers took their positions at the 90-meter line, a new wind pattern emerged, strong, gusting crosswinds that made precise aiming nearly impossible. Foster, true to Olivia's prediction, maintained his usual shooting rhythm, resulting in scattered arrows as gusts caught them mid-flight. Webb, applying Olivia's techniques, timed his shots more strategically, waiting for the brief windows when the wind subsided. The approach was working. After 4 ends, Webb held a narrow lead. But in the 5th and final end, with 3 arrows remaining, disaster struck. A sudden gust caught Webb's arrow just as he released, sending it wide into the 7 ring. His confidence visibly shaken, Webb rushed his next shot, trying to make up for the poor arrow. It too missed the center, landing in the 8 ring. Foster, meanwhile, had just shot a solid 10 with his previous arrow, putting him in position to take the lead if Webb couldn't recover. Olivia could see Webb's frustration and anxiety from behind the shooting line. His form was deteriorating, his focus scattered by the pressure and the unpredictable conditions. With 1 arrow remaining in gold hanging in the balance, Webb looked back at her, his expression desperate for guidance. In that moment, Olivia made a decision. She picked up her father's Olympic bow, which she'd brought for demonstrations but hadn't yet used. Stepping to the edge of the coach's area, she quickly strung the bow and nocked an arrow. She didn't need to shoot, just demonstrate. With Webb watching, Olivia went through the motions of her shot sequence in slow, deliberate movements. She showed him how to adjust his stance for the crosswind, how to slightly modify his anchor point, how to time his breathing with the wind patterns. Then she drew the bow to full draw, held through a gust of wind, waited for the precise moment between gusts, and released the string without actually letting the arrow fly. The message was clear: patience, precision, trust the process. Webb turned back to the shooting line, his focus restored. He took a deep breath, adjusted his stance exactly as Olivia had demonstrated, and waited for the right moment between gusts. When he finally released, his arrow flew true despite the challenging conditions, striking the 10 ring just left of center. It wasn't enough to win gold. Foster's consistent performance had built too much of a lead in the earlier ends, but Webby's silver medal represented the best finish of his career at a major competition. As he left the shooting line, he approached Olivia with a new respect in his eyes. "That was the most important shot I've ever made," he said. "Not because of the medal, but because I finally understood what you've been trying to teach us. It's not about fighting conditions. It's about working with them, understanding them, becoming part of them." Olivia nodded, pleased that he had grasped the deeper lesson. That understanding will serve you better than any single medal. As Webb was celebrated by his teammates, Olivia turned her attention to the upcoming junior women's final. Mia Johnson would be facing Diana Torres, the top-ranked junior archer in the country and the clear favorite for gold. Mia approached Olivia, her expression a mixture of excitement and terror. "I can't believe I made it to the final," she said. "But Torres is amazing. She's never lost a head-to-head match this season." "Records are made to be broken," Olivia replied calmly. "And conditions like these are the great equalizer. Torres is used to winning in controlled environments. Today is about who can adapt." "How do I beat her?" Mia asked bluntly. Olivia considered the question carefully. "Not by trying to shoot perfect arrows. In these conditions, that's impossible. You beat her by making better decisions. When to shoot, how to adjust, how to manage the variables you can control, and accept those you can't." Mia nodded, taking in the advice. "Like what you showed Marcus before his last shot." "Exactly. Trust the process we've developed. The results will follow." As Mia prepared for her final match, Olivia noticed several tournament officials and coaches gathered near the announcer's tent, looking in her direction and talking animatedly. Richard Donovan was with them, apparently attempting to defuse whatever situation was developing. Coach Bennett approached Olivia with a concerned expression. "We may have a problem. Someone recognized you, a judge who competed against you at Worlds. There's some question about whether you should be allowed in the coaches area without proper credentials." "My credentials were approved," Olivia pointed out. "Under a different name," Bennett reminded her. "Donovan is handling it. But be prepared for some attention once this gets out." Olivia felt the familiar anxiety rising at the thought of being thrust back into the spotlight, but pushed it aside. Mia's final was about to begin, and the young archer needed her full attention more than ever. The junior women's final started in the most challenging conditions of the day. The afternoon sun cast tricky shadows across the targets, and the wind had intensified, gusting unpredictably across the field. Both archers struggled with their opening arrows, but Torres' experience gave her an early advantage. After the first end, Torres led by 3 points. Olivia could see Mia's confidence wavering as she returned to the waiting area. "She's so consistent, even in this wind," Mia said, frustration evident in her voice. "Watch her timing," Olivia advised. "She's shooting on a fixed schedule regardless of conditions. That's giving her consistency, but it's also a weakness in variable wind. You can be more strategic." Mia applied the advice in the second end, taking extra time to read the wind before each shot. The approach paid off. She closed Torres' lead to a single point. By the third end, the match was tied, with both archers feeling the mounting pressure. As the fourth and final end began, the wind conditions suddenly worsened dramatically. A desert dust devil formed at the edge of the field, creating swirling, chaotic wind patterns that defied prediction. Torres shot first, her arrows landing in the 8, 9, and outer 10. A solid performance given the conditions, but not her best. When Mia stepped to the line for her final 3 arrows, Olivia could see the young archer's hands trembling slightly. Everything she'd worked for came down to these 3 shots in nearly impossible conditions. The first arrow caught a gust, landing in the 8 ring. The second was better, finding the 9, but still leaving Mia 2 points behind Torres with 1 arrow remaining. To win gold, Mia needed a perfect 10 with her final arrow, and not just any 10, but a center 10 worth 11 points under the tournament rules. It was the archery equivalent of a half-court shot at the buzzer, possible but improbable, especially in these conditions. As Mia prepared for her final shot, she looked back at Olivia, seeking guidance for what seemed like an impossible task. The entire venue had gone quiet, the spectators and other competitors sensing the drama unfolding. Olivia moved to the edge of the coaches' area, her father's Olympic bow in hand. Just as she had done for Webb, she demonstrated rather than instructed, showing Mia through her own body position and shot sequence how to approach this crucial final arrow. But unlike with Webb, Olivia went further. She knocked an arrow on her father's bow, drew smoothly to anchor, and held steady despite the gusting wind. She waited and waited, reading the chaotic wind patterns, feeling the subtle shifts in the air that most archers would never detect. Then, in a moment of perfect stillness that seemed to exist between heartbeats, Olivia released the arrow. It flew true through the swirling winds, covering the 70 meters to the target in a perfect arc before striking dead center, a demonstration shot that drew gasps from those watching. The impossible shot made possible through perfect reading of impossible conditions. The message to Mia was clear: it could be done. The young archer turned back to the shooting line with new determination in her eyes, a calm focus replacing her earlier anxiety. Mia knocked her final arrow, adjusted her stance exactly as Olivia had demonstrated, and began her shot sequence. She drew smoothly to anchor, and then, rather than rushing the shot as most would under such pressure, she waited. 5 seconds passed, then 10, as she read the wind patterns just as Olivia had taught her. When she finally released, her arrow flew straight and true, splitting the air with perfect precision despite the swirling winds. It struck the absolute center of the target, an 11-point shot that gave her gold by a single point. The crowd erupted in cheers as Mia's teammates rushed to congratulate her. In the excitement, few noticed the tournament official approaching, Olivia with Donovan and several other officials in tow. "Miss Parker," the official said formally, "we need to speak with you about your credentials and your role here today." Olivia nodded, accepting that her anonymity was officially at an end. But as she prepared to face the questions and attention that would inevitably follow, she caught sight of Mia Johnson holding her gold medal aloft, her face radiant with the joy of achievement. In that moment, Olivia realized something profound. The legacy her father had left her wasn't a burden to carry, but a gift to share. The knowledge, the skills, the understanding of what it took to achieve excellence. These weren't things to hide away, but treasures to pass on to the next generation. She had spent 3 years running from who she was, only to discover that embracing her identity, not just as Thomas Parker's daughter, but as Olivia Parker, archer and mentor in her own right, was the path to true fulfillment. As she turned to face the officials, Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Whatever questions came, whatever attention followed, she was ready to stand in her own light rather than hiding in shadows. The equipment girl had made the impossible shot, not just with an arrow, but with her life, finding the perfect balance between honoring her father's legacy and creating her own. "Yes," she said clearly, standing tall. "I'm Olivia Parker. And I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Olivia Parker moved through the Highland Archers training facility like a shadow, unnoticed, efficient, and deliberately forgettable. At 28, she had mastered the art of becoming invisible. Her auburn hair was always tucked beneath a worn baseball cap, her clothes practical and unremarkable, and her green eyes rarely connected with anyone directly. The competitive archers called her equipment girl behind her back, though her role extended far beyond that simple label. She was a maintenance technician hired 8 months ago to handle the endless array of equipment issues that came with preparing elite archers for championship competition. Broken bowstrings, damaged stabilizers, loose sights, and countless other technical problems. Olivia had seen and fixed it all with a quiet precision that made people forget she was even there, which was exactly how she preferred it. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., Olivia arrived at the equipment station before anyone else. She'd organize the repair tools, inspect the practice bows, and prepare the training area with methodical care. The Highland Archers facility hummed with the focused energy of competitive training, coaches giving instructions, archers practicing their form, the rhythmic thud of arrows striking targets. Olivia worked through it all with systematic efficiency, a small figure in a gray technician's shirt who seemed to anticipate every equipment need before it arose. The archers who bothered to notice her at all saw exactly what they expected to see: a quiet technical assistant who fixed their equipment. Some were polite enough, nodding when they passed her in the corridors. Others treated her like just another piece of equipment, useful when needed, invisible otherwise. A few, like Marcus Webb, the facility's star archer and three-time national champion, seemed to take pleasure in reminding her of her place in the center's hierarchy. "Equipment girl strikes again," Webb would say when Olivia appeared to fix a damaged bow, his voice carrying just enough mockery to make nearby archers snicker. "Bet she's never even drawn a competition bow before." Olivia never responded to these comments. She'd learned long ago that some battles weren't worth fighting, especially when you had bigger secrets to protect. She'd repair the equipment, adjust the sights, file the maintenance reports, and return to her station, where she'd spend lunch breaks alone studying the latest archery technical manuals and equipment innovations. What none of them knew, what none of them could have guessed, was that Olivia Parker was the daughter of Thomas Bullseye Parker, one of the most legendary Olympic archers in American history. 3 gold medals over 12 years, including the famous Hurricane shot that won the team competition in Madrid despite impossible wind conditions. Archery blogs still debated whether some of his competition shots were even physically possible given the conditions. Olivia wore her father's championship ring every day, a simple gold band with an arrow engraved on the inside, that had been present at countless competitions across 3 Olympic Games. She'd inherited more than just the ring when Thomas died of a stroke 2 years ago. She'd inherited 20 years of training, muscle memory that could put arrows through playing cards at 70 meters, and a precision that extended far beyond archery into every aspect of her life. But she'd also inherited his burden, the weight of what those skills meant, the responsibility that came with being extraordinary when all you wanted was to be ordinary. After Thomas's funeral, Olivia had walked away from her position as the youngest coach ever hired by the Olympic Training Center. 6 years of international competition, a silver medal at the World Championships, dozens of national records. All of it felt hollow without him there to share it with. She'd tried working at a sporting goods store for a while, but it felt too removed from the world she understood. The Highland archer's position was perfect. Archery environment, technical work, but no competition. She could serve the sport without the pressure of performance, help without facing the spotlight that had always made her uncomfortable. The irony wasn't lost on her that she'd ended up back where she started, surrounded by competitive archers who saw her as nothing more than an equipment technician. But anonymity had its advantages. Nobody asked probing questions about her background. Nobody expected her to be anything more than competent at basic bow repair. Nobody suspected that. The quiet woman adjusting stabilizers could put 3 arrows into a dime-sized group at 90 meters. Olivia's small apartment outside Phoenix reflected her carefully cultivated ordinary life. Technical manuals, a few photographs of her father at the Olympics, and locked in a case she rarely opened, his custom Olympic recurve bow. She maintained it religiously since his death, but never drew it. That part of her life was over, or so she thought. The first sign that her carefully constructed piece was about to shatter came on a Thursday. Aftermath of the regional championships unfolded in ways Olivia could never have anticipated. News of her identity spread through the archery world like wildfire. Thomas Parker's daughter, the silver medalist who had vanished from competition after her father's death, discovered working as an equipment technician at a training center in Arizona. The story was irresistible to sports media, who framed it as everything from a heartwarming tale of mentorship to a scandalous expose of wasted talent. For Olivia, the sudden return to the spotlight was overwhelming. Her phone rang constantly with interview requests, tournament invitations, and coaching offers. Her carefully constructed anonymity had been shattered, replaced by a visibility that made her deeply uncomfortable. Yet something had fundamentally changed within her during those crucial moments at the championships, watching Mia Johnson transform from an insecure young archer into a champion, seeing Marcus Webb evolve From arrogant competitor to thoughtful athlete, feeling the satisfaction of sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it. "I never wanted this attention," Olivia confessed to Coach Bennett a week after returning from the championships. They sat in the Highland Archers facility after hours, the shooting lanes empty and quiet. "But I can't deny that helping the team felt right in a way nothing has since my father died." Bennett nodded, understanding in her eyes. "There's a difference between being in the spotlight as a competitor and standing slightly behind it as a mentor. One is about proving yourself. The other is about helping others discover what they're capable of." The distinction resonated with Olivia. Her years as a competitor had been defined by constant pressure to live up to expectations, her father's, her coach's, her own. But during the championships, her focus had been entirely on the Archers, on helping them navigate challenges and discover their potential. The satisfaction came not from personal achievement, but from facilitating others' success. "The media attention will die down," Bennett assured her. "But the impact you've had on our Archers will last. Especially for Mia. You've changed the trajectory of her career, maybe her life." As if summoned by her name, Mia Johnson appeared at the door of the equipment room, her gold medal hanging around her neck. Since returning from the championships, she'd taken to wearing it during practice, not out of vanity, but as a tangible reminder that she was capable of excellence even under the most challenging conditions. "Sorry to interrupt," Mia said, "but I wanted to show you something." She handed Olivia a letter bearing the emblem of the National Archery Development Program. "They've invited me to the Olympic Development Camp this summer. The selection committee specifically mentioned my performance under adverse conditions at regionals." Olivia felt a surge of pride as she read the letter. The Olympic Development Camp was a crucial stepping stone toward international competition. Exactly the opportunity Mia needed to continue her growth as an archer. "This is because of you," Mia said simply. "Not just the technical stuff you taught me, but making me believe I could perform under pressure, that I could read conditions instead of being defeated by them." "You earned this," Olivia corrected her. "I just helped you see what was already there." After Mia left, clutching her invitation with barely contained excitement, Bennett turned to Olivia with a knowing look. "That feeling right there, seeing her potential unfold, is something no medal can match, isn't it?" Olivia nodded, understanding now what her father had tried to tell her in their last conversation before his death. "My dad always said that. His greatest achievement wasn't the gold medals but seeing me develop as an archer. I never fully understood what he meant until now." The following weeks brought unexpected challenges and opportunities as Olivia navigated her new reality. Frank Nelson, recognizing the value she brought to Highland Archers, offered her an expanded role that combined equipment management with technical consultation for the competition team. The position would allow her to continue the work that had proven so transformative while maintaining some distance from the spotlight. "I'm not asking you to be a full coach," Nelson clarified, "but your knowledge is too valuable to be limited to equipment repair. Our archers need what you can offer, especially your ability to read competition conditions and adapt equipment." Accordingly, Olivia accepted the role with both excitement and trepidation. She was stepping back into the competitive archery world, albeit from a different angle than before. The question that haunted her was whether she could maintain this delicate balance, contributing her expertise without being consumed by the pressures and expectations that had driven her away in the first place. The answer began to emerge through her work with the Highland Archers in the weeks following the championships. Without the immediate pressure of competition, Olivia found herself enjoying the process of technical instruction, breaking down complex concepts into manageable components, helping archers understand not just what adjustments to make, but why they mattered. She developed a systematic approach to teaching condition assessment, creating exercises that trained archers to read wind patterns and light variations with increasing precision. Most surprising was her work with Marcus Webb, the national silver Medalist had returned from the championships with a transformed attitude, his former arrogance replaced by a hungry curiosity. He sought Olivia out regularly, eager to deepen his understanding of the technical aspects she'd introduced during the competition. "I've been competing for years, thinking it was all about perfect form and mental toughness," Webb admitted during one of their sessions. "But what you showed me about reading conditions, about adapting rather than just powering through, it's a whole different approach to excellence. It's what separated my father from his competitors," Olivia explained. "Anyone can shoot well in perfect conditions. Champions perform regardless of conditions." Webb considered this, testing the balance of his newly adjusted stabilizer setup. "Why did you walk away from competition? With your talent, your understanding of the sport, you could have surpassed even your father's achievements." The question would have triggered defensiveness in Olivia just weeks earlier. Now she found herself able to answer honestly. "After my father died, competing felt hollow. The drive was gone. I couldn't separate my love for archery from my grief over losing him, so I ran from both." "And now?" Webb asked. Olivia smiled, realizing the truth as she spoke it. "Now I'm finding my way back to the love without letting the grief overshadow it. Not as a competitor, but as something else. Something that feels right for me." The conversation with Webb crystallized something important for Olivia. She wasn't just helping others improve their archery. She was rediscovering her own relationship with the sport, one defined by sharing knowledge rather than proving herself. This realization brought a sense of peace she hadn't felt since before her father's death. This newfound clarity was tested 2 weeks later when Richard Donovan appeared at Highland Archers with an unexpected proposition. The veteran coach approached Olivia as she worked in the equipment room, his expression serious but animated by an underlying excitement. "The national team needs you," he said without preamble. "Not as an archer, as a technical consultant for the upcoming World Cup." Olivia's hand stilled on the bow she was adjusting. "What are you talking about?" "The World Cup is being held in Antalya this year," Donovan explained. "Coastal venue, notorious for unpredictable wind conditions. Our team has technical coaches for form and execution, mental performance specialists for the psychological game, but no one with your expertise in reading conditions and adapting equipment accordingly." The proposition was simultaneously flattering and terrifying. The World Cup was one of archery's premier events, second only to the Olympics in prestige. Being asked to join the national team support staff represented a level of professional recognition Olivia hadn't expected and wasn't sure she was ready for. "This would be completely behind the scenes," Donovan assured her, sensing her hesitation. "No media obligations, no public appearances. Just you, doing exactly what you did for Highland at regionals, but for archers competing at the highest level of the sport." "Why me?" Olivia asked. "There must be other technical consultants with international experience." Donovan shook his head. "No one with your specific combination of skills. You've competed internationally, so you understand the pressure. You've been trained by one of the greatest condition readers in archery history. And you've proven at regionals that you can translate that knowledge into practical guidance that helps archers perform under pressure." The offer forced Olivia to confront the next step in her journey. Working with Highlands archers in a familiar environment was one thing. Stepping onto the world stage, even in a supporting role, was something else entirely. It meant fully embracing her identity as Thomas Parker's daughter rather than hiding from it. It meant acknowledging her own expertise rather than minimizing it. "I need time to think about it," she told Donovan. That evening, Olivia found herself once again contemplating her father's Olympic bow. In the week since the regional championships, she'd begun practicing with it occasionally, not with competitive ambitions, but as a way to reconnect with the pure joy of archery she'd first experienced as a child. The familiar grip, worn to the exact contours of Thomas Parker's hand, but somehow fitting her own perfectly as well, had become a source of comfort rather than pain. As she ran her fingers along the bow's limbs, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought her to this crossroads. 3 years ago, devastated by her father's death, she had fled from everything associated with competitive archery, seeking anonymity as protection against grief. The equipment technician role at Highland had been a compromise, a way to stay connected to the sport without facing the expectations and memories that came with competition. But the regional championships had changed everything, helping Mia Johnson achieve gold, guiding Marcus Webb to his silver medal, watching the entire Highland team exceed expectations through applying her knowledge. These experiences had shown her a different path forward. Not running from her father's legacy, but transforming it into something uniquely her own. "What would you tell me to do, Dad?" she whispered to the empty apartment. The answer came not in her father's voice, but in her own understanding of who Thomas Parker had truly been. Beyond the medals and records, he had been someone who loved archery in its purest form, the perfect harmony of archer, bow, and target. He had passed that love to Olivia not through pressure or expectations, but through sharing his knowledge, his insights, his way of seeing the world through an archer's eyes. Perhaps that was the legacy she was meant to carry forward, not by replicating his competitive achievements, but by sharing the deeper wisdom he had imparted to her. The next morning, Olivia called Donovan with her decision. "I'll join the team for the World Cup," she said. "But I have conditions." "Name them," Donovan replied, echoing Frank Nelson's response weeks earlier. "I work solely on technical consultation, equipment setup, condition reading, adaptation strategies. I'm not a coach, not a strategist, not a mental game specialist." "Agreed. No media obligations. If journalists want to talk about Thomas Parker's daughter joining the national team, they do it without my participation." "That might be challenging, but we'll make it work," Donovan promised. "And most importantly," Olivia concluded, "I need to finish my commitments to Highland archers first. Mia Johnson and 2 other archers have qualified for nationals next month. I promise to help them prepare, and I won't back out on that." "The World Cup isn't until August," Donovan said. "That gives you plenty of time to fulfill your Highland commitments before joining us for pre-cup training." With the decision made, Olivia felt a strange mixture of anticipation and calm. She was stepping back into the international archery world, but on her own terms, not as a competitor bearing the weight of expectations, but as a specialist offering her unique expertise. It felt right in a way that nothing had since her father's death. The weeks leading up to the national championships passed in a blur of preparation. Olivia worked intensively with Mia Johnson and the other Highland qualifiers, developing specialized equipment setups and training regimens tailored to the expected conditions at the nationals venue. She balanced this work with her ongoing responsibilities at Highland, where her expanded role had brought a new level of technical sophistication to the entire program. One evening, as Olivia was reviewing weather forecasts for the nationals venue, Coach Bennett found her still working long after the facility had officially closed. "You've transformed this place," Bennett observed, gesturing around the equipment room that Olivia had reorganized into a state-of-the-art technical center. "Not just the physical space, but the whole approach to training. Our archers don't just practice anymore, they understand." Olivia looked up from her weather charts. "That's the most important thing my father taught me. Not just how to execute a perfect shot, but why each element matters, how it all fits together into a coherent system." "Thomas would be proud," Bennett said softly. "Not just of what you've accomplished, but of how you've found your own way." To honor his legacy, the comment touched Olivia deeply. For years after her father's death, she had been caught between 2 impossible options, trying to live up to his competitive achievements or running away from them entirely. Now she had discovered a third path, using his teachings as a foundation for her own unique contribution to the sport they both loved. "I spent 3 years trying to escape being Thomas Parker's daughter," Olivia admitted. "But the truth is, I never wanted to escape him or what he taught me. I just needed to find my own relationship with it all." "And have you?" Bennett asked. Olivia nodded, a sense of certainty settling over her. "I think so. I'm not continuing his competitive legacy. I'm extending his teaching legacy. He was more than just a champion archer. He was a profound student of the sport who understood its deepest principles. That's what I can pass on." The national championships arrived with perfect June weather and the highest level of competition many of the Highland archers had ever faced. As Olivia had expected, the spotlight found her immediately, journalists seeking interviews, competitors watching her work with the Highland team, coaches approaching with technical questions they'd been saving for just such an opportunity. She navigated it all with a quiet confidence that surprised even herself. Where once she had hidden from attention, now she simply directed it toward her work rather than her person. When approached by reporters, she politely declined interviews, but offered technical insights about the competition conditions. When recognized by other coaches, she engaged in professional exchanges rather than retreating into silence. Most importantly, she remained fully present for the Highland archers, who had come to rely on her guidance. Mia Johnson, competing in her first national championship, drew particular attention after her gold medal performance at regionals. The young archer handled the pressure with remarkable composure, applying Olivia's techniques for condition assessment and equipment adaptation as if she'd been doing it for years. "Everyone keeps asking me about being coached by Thomas Parker's daughter," Mia told Olivia during a break between qualification rounds. "They act like I should be intimidated working with someone from such a famous archery family." "And are you?" Olivia asked. Mia shook her head, adjusting her stabilizer with the confidence of someone who truly understood its purpose. "I don't think about you that way. You're just Olivia, the person who taught me to see archery as a system, not just a series of shots. The person who showed me how to read conditions instead of fighting them." The simple statement affected Olivia profoundly. In Mia's eyes, she wasn't defined by her father's achievements or her own competitive history, but by what she had contributed to the young archer's development. It was exactly the kind of recognition that mattered most. As the competition progressed, the Highland archers performed beyond expectations. Marcus Webb advanced to the senior men's semifinal, ultimately finishing 4th in a field that included several Olympic medalists. 2 other Highland archers reached the quarterfinals in their respective divisions. But it was Mia Johnson who delivered the most remarkable performance. Competing against archers with far more experience, she advanced steadily through the elimination rounds, applying Olivia's technical guidance with unwavering precision. In the junior women's final, facing the defending national champion, Mia demonstrated a level of condition adaptation that left commentators searching for superlatives. "Johnson is shooting like a veteran twice her age," one analyst observed. "The way she's reading and responding to the changing conditions, that's Thomas Parker's influence coming through his daughter's coaching." When the final arrow had been shot, Mia stood as the new national junior champion, her performance establishing her as a serious contender for future international teams. As medals were presented and photographs taken, Olivia watched from the sidelines, experiencing a satisfaction deeper than any she had known during her own competitive career. Frank Nelson found her there, his expression a mixture of pride and amazement. "4 finalists, including a national champion," he said. "Highland Archers has never had results like this. You've revolutionized our program in just a few months." "The talent was already there," Olivia pointed out. "They just needed the tools to maximize it." "Tools you provided," Nelson countered. "Which makes me wonder what you could accomplish with the national team at the World Cup." The reminder of her commitment to Donovan and the World Cup team brought a new sense of purpose rather than anxiety. The success of Highlands Archers had confirmed what Olivia had begun to suspect, that her true calling wasn't in competition, but in technical development, in helping archers understand and adapt to the complex variables that determined performance at the highest level. After the medal ceremony, as the championship arena began to empty, Olivia found a quiet moment to call Richard Donovan and confirm her participation in the World Cup team. "I'll be there," she told him. "After seeing what happened here at Nationals, I'm confident I can contribute something valuable to the team." "We've been watching the results," Donovan replied. "Johnson's performance in particular. The technical foundation you've given her is extraordinary. That's exactly what our international team needs." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the practice area. Olivia looked up to see a group of young archers gathered around someone she couldn't immediately identify. As she moved closer, the crowd parted to reveal a tall man with silver hair and an unmistakable presence, William Reynolds, three-time Olympic gold medalist and her father's longtime friend and rival. Reynolds spotted Olivia and broke away from his admirers, approaching with a warm smile. "Olivia Parker," he said, embracing her. "It's been too long." "Uncle Will," she responded automatically, using the name she'd called him since childhood. "I didn't know you were here." "I wouldn't miss the chance to see Thomas's daughter making her mark on the archery world again," Reynolds said, though not quite the way everyone expected. There was no judgment in his tone, only genuine curiosity and warmth. Reynolds had been her father's closest friend, despite their competitive rivalry, the one person who had truly understood Thomas Parker's complex relationship with the sport that defined his life. "I've found my own path," Olivia told him. "Not competing, but sharing what Dad taught me." Reynolds nodded approvingly. "Thomas always said you had a gift for seeing the patterns he had to work to discern, the subtle interactions of wind and light that make or break performance at the highest level. He believed that gift would make you an even greater archer than he was. I tried that path," Olivia said quietly. "After he died, it didn't feel right anymore. Because you were trying to continue his journey instead of starting your own," Reynolds observed with the insight of someone who had known her since childhood. "But what you're doing now, this technical development work, it's something uniquely yours. Something that builds on Thomas's legacy without being constrained by it." The perception was so accurate, it took Olivia's breath away. Reynolds had articulated exactly what she'd been feeling but couldn't fully express, that her current work honored her father's teachings while allowing her to forge her own identity in the archery world. "I'm joining the national team for the World Cup," she told him. "As a technical consultant, not a competitor." Reynolds's face lit up. Perfect timing. "I've just been appointed team leader for the World Cup delegation. It seems we'll be working together." The synchronicity felt right, even destined. William Reynolds had been present for her earliest archery lessons, had competed alongside her father through 3 Olympic cycles, had understood Thomas Parker's approach to the sport as well as anyone alive. Having him as a colleague for her first international assignment seemed like the closing of a circle that had been interrupted by her father's death and her subsequent withdrawal from the archery world. "Dad would have loved that," Olivia said, feeling a genuine smile spread across her face. "You and me, working together." "He always said we balanced each other perfectly," Reynolds agreed. "My technical precision and his intuitive reading of conditions. Now you bring both together, Thomas's intuition with a technical understanding that even he didn't possess." As they continued catching up, Mia Johnson approached hesitantly, clearly recognizing Reynolds but uncertain about interrupting. Olivia waved her over, making introductions. "So you're the young archer who's benefiting from Olivia's guidance," Reynolds said warmly. "Congratulations on your championship. Your performance in the final was remarkable." "Thank you, sir," Mia replied, awestruck to be speaking with an Olympic legend. It's all because of what Olivia has taught me. About reading conditions rather than fighting them, Reynolds guessed. About understanding your equipment as an extension of yourself, rather than just a tool. About finding the rhythm in seemingly chaotic variables. Mia nodded, surprised by his precise understanding of Olivia's teaching approach. Those were Thomas Parker's core principles, Reynolds explained. The foundation of his approach to archery as an integrated system rather than a series of discrete skills. Olivia has clearly preserved his wisdom while developing her own methods of sharing it. The conversation continued as they walked together toward the exit, Reynolds sharing stories about Thomas that Olivia had never heard. Mia absorbing every word with the hunger of someone truly dedicated to mastering her craft. In that moment, Olivia felt the final pieces of her new identity clicking into place, not running from her father's legacy nor trapped by it, but extending it in ways uniquely her own. Later that evening, as Olivia packed her equipment in preparation for returning to Highland Archers, she found a quiet moment to visit the now empty competition field. Standing at the shooting line where Mia had won her championship hours earlier, Olivia allowed herself to fully embrace the journey that had brought her to this point. 3 years ago, devastated by her father's death, she had fled from the archery world, seeking anonymity as a shield against grief and expectations. The equipment technician role at Highland had been a compromise, close enough to the sport. She loved to be bearable, far enough from the spotlight to feel safe. Then came the regional championships, the revelation of her identity, and the discovery that sharing her knowledge brought a satisfaction deeper than any medal. Now she stood on the threshold of rejoining the international archery community. Not as a competitor, but as a technical innovator, someone who could help archers maximize their potential through understanding the complex interplay of equipment, conditions, and execution. It wasn't the path anyone had expected for Thomas Parker's daughter, not the archery community, not her father's colleagues, not even Olivia herself. But standing there in the quiet of the empty arena, she knew with absolute certainty that it was the right path for her. Olivia drew her father's Olympic bow from its case, feeling its familiar weight and balance as an old friend rather than a burden. She nocked an arrow, drew to anchor, and released with the perfect form that had once made her a world-class competitor. The arrow struck dead center in the distant target, a shot that once would have been about proving herself, but now was simply an expression of harmony with the sport she had rediscovered on her own terms. "They used to call me Equipment Girl," she said softly to the empty field, "until I made the impossible shot, not with an arrow, but with my life." As Olivia lowered the bow, she felt a profound sense of peace. The journey wasn't over. The World Cup awaited, and beyond that, possibilities she was only beginning to imagine. But the direction was clear now, the path illuminated by understanding rather than expectation. Thomas Parker's daughter had found her way back to archery not by following in his footsteps, but by charting her own course through the landscape he had helped her learn to navigate. The Equipment Girl had become a technical innovator, a mentor, a guardian of wisdom worth preserving. Not a replica of her father, but a continuation of what mattered most about his legacy, the deep understanding of archery as both science and art, precision and intuition, technique and adaptation. It was enough, more than enough. It was exactly right. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe. And turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.